I know you've been campaigning actively for a variety of changes, and you've been looking at this whole area of bullying closely. What are the main points that you'd like to raise this morning with us?
My main point, I suppose, I have been involved in a long time through a community development project that I ran in Mayo, where I did in conjunction with Trinity Anti-Bullying Centre. We did a whole study on this many years ago, and we developed a model. Now, what was different, I suppose, about this model was that a whole community model. So it's a whole school model and a whole community model, because we very much believed at the time that wherever you have human beings gathered together, you can have bullying behaviour. And to deny that, I think, is not accepting the problem that it is, or the impact that bullying and bullying behaviour can have on anybody's life, but particularly on young people, where they may not have built up the resilience that some adults may have. And I have seen lives destroyed by it, and people will know different cases of it. So it takes a whole community to cultivate an ethos of zero tolerance to bullying behaviour, because it doesn't just stop at the school gates. Now, even before we have all the social media platforms and all of that, you can have bullying in the GAA club, in sports clubs, on the school bus, and just people hanging around together and all of that. So unless you get all of the people involved within a community, right, then I think you're always going to be less effective at tackling the problem. Now, we discussed this, as you know, yesterday in the Education Committee, and my point was there's so many studies being done on this over the years and so much analysis, but the resources aren't implemented, particularly at school level, at both primary school and secondary school, in creating that ethos within the school, because the schools and the teachers and the principals are under severe pressure as it is. And tackling bullying cannot just be an add-on for SPHE class, or, just confined to a half an hour a week. It has to be, the resources have to be put in for the training of teachers, for the training of parents, for raising awareness, and for having the proper procedures in place, and right, having a whole audit process.
So what would you like to see happen then, Rose? As you say, schools are under pressure because they're currently trying to work to the health guidelines as well. So, and there have been improvements, to be fair to schools. I know, because I've dealt with schools who've told me about the improvements, and we've already had it acknowledged that there have been improvements. But I think, listening to you would like to see a lot more.
Oh, indeed, and I want to commend the schools that have managed, in spite of everything, to create the ethos of zero tolerance to bullying, but they need the resources in there. Like, everything is underpinned together as well, Alan. So where you have very high pupil-teacher ratios, and you have pressures on schools, pressures on principals, then that's all related into how you tackle the situation of bullying, or create that ethos within it. So the resources need to be given. Schools and teachers need to be asked, what do they need in order to create that ethos? So if it's training, that needs to be done, and the proper training needs to be done at colleges as well. So when teachers are starting off in first year to be trained to be teachers, anti-bullying needs to form a very significant part of that. And then there needs to be continuous training from there on in as well. But it needs to extend out then to the sports clubs, to the local Gardaí as well. And when we did the whole community approach, we had Gardaí involved in it as well. And just everybody who comes in contact with young people within the community, and then building up the resilience for young people themselves as well. Many people, young people may not know for quite a while that what they are experiencing is real bullying behaviour, and they need to know the pathways to be able to address that, and who to go to and where to get help.
You mentioned sport and GAA. I've got a text in from a listener who says bullying is rife in the GAA as well. My granddaughter, a brilliant little hurler, was forced to give it up because of bullying, yet when we reported it, so far absolutely nothing has been done. Now, I'll get in contact with the County Secretary to find out what is the to give them a chance to reply to this. But But I know of clubs who have a very strong viewpoint on bullying in any shape or form and actively enhance those principles. So again, I think what we're hearing from you this morning is there are schools who are really stepping up to the plate here. There are GAA clubs who are stepping up to the plate. But in schools and in clubs, not just GAA clubs, there are other clubs who aren't stepping up to the plate. Everybody needs to step up to the plate.
That's right, but there needs to be very consistent, clear messaging as well, because I have been at very many GAA matches and all that, and you have parents screaming and roaring on the sidelines, shouting abuse at players who are on the pitch and underage players in a lot of cases. Then people need to be aware of their own behaviours as well and the messages that's giving. So if you have parents shouting and screaming on the sideline and shouting abuse at youngsters, then how can you turn around and say to students at school, well, you know, bullying is wrong and all that? We need to at our own behaviour and to analyse that and have consistent, clear messages within a community and within a school to say that these behaviours are not tolerated, and they won't be tolerated. But it's all about the implementation of the policies. There's been development of policies over the years, Alan, but the resources haven't been there to implement them, and that needs to be done as a matter of urgency.
So if these policies are implemented, will that give guidelines for whether it be a sports club or a school that they have to follow, so that the same game plan will be for everybody?
Yes, but there needs to be continuous assessment in that, and there needs to be an anti-bullying audit tool to evaluate that on a continuous basis. So that, and it needs to be a 360-degree evaluation where you actually ask the young people, is this working for you? If it's not working for the young people themselves, it should never be just a box-ticking exercise to satisfy the department or satisfy a school evaluation. So it's about stamping out that kind of hatred and intolerance everywhere across the community and exchanging the learning and the experiences within a community. And I think the results of it, well, I know the results of it because we did baseline studies as well then to measure the whole community response, and it was proven to be very effective within us. You know, a lot of all of the community development projects then were shut down, and I think that's the great tragedy of a lot of these really good practices that are done and never actually become mainstreamed because government doesn't recognise the value of them within that.
It's a big talking point with our listeners, like a very interesting comment from listeners. Some victims of cyber or any form of bullying only needs one negative comment to devastate them into a spiral of depression, eating disorder and low self-esteem. I mean, that's a very strong comment. And look, thanks for taking time. Do you row in with Brendan Howland's Coco's Law? Or is this right across the board? Is everybody in favour of this, do you think?
Oh, for sure. Everybody is in favour of it, and it's about government giving it the time and about prioritising it and about realising the destruction that can be done to people's lives at a very early age that can carry on right through their life cycle in terms of the impact that has had. So what I'm saying to government, this is something we have to invest in. We just have no choice but to invest in it. I want to see greater collaboration between the universities as well, because sometimes I see it a nonsense of a kind of competitive situation. If it's not my idea or if it's not my model, then it's not workable. We absolutely have a responsibility, and all of us as adults have a responsibility to young people as well, to make sure the legislation is there. And this thing of setting up social media profiles and all that, the Gardaí need the tools to be able to deal with those crimes as well, because to me they are crimes.